Hey, welcome. So, we're all caught in this endless race, right? The race to become the best version of ourselves, fitter, smarter, more productive. But what if I told you that constant chase, that push, is the very thing holding you back? Today, we're going to dig into the incredible paradox of self improvement and why real, lasting change might start from a place you'd never expect.
And yeah, this is the question, isn't it? It's the one that stops us dead in our tracks. It feels like this impossible choice. Either you beat yourself up to get better, or you accept yourself and, just become a permanent fixture on your couch. Let's really unpack that fear. From day one, we're pretty much taught that our inner critic is our personal drill sergeant, the tough voice that's supposed to whip us into shape. But what if that voice isn't fuel at all? What if it's actually the emergency brake? We're about to bust that entire myth wide open, and we'll use a little psychology and neuroscience to do it. All right, so here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the problem, what I call the self-improvement treadmill. Then we'll get into a totally counterintuitive solution, look at the actual science behind why it works, clear up the single biggest misunderstanding, and then, finally, land on a practical way to actually grow. Okay, first up, this relentless race for a better you. It feels so productive, so necessary, but what's the real cost? What are we paying for it? Well, when the engine for getting better is really the feeling that you're not good enough right now, you fall right into the self-criticism trap. See, this isn't motivation for real growth. It's just fueled by a kind of self-loathing. Every goal you hit gives you a temporary high, but it never fills that deep void of self-validation. It's an endless cycle that just leads to burnout, anxiety, and that constant nagging pressure to be perfect. So, how in the world do you get off this treadmill? The answer is wild. It comes from this powerful, totally counterintuitive idea in psychotherapy that completely flips the script on how we think change happens. Check out this quote from a psychotherapist named Arnold Bieser. It's the absolute core of something called the paradoxical theory of change. Now, I know it sounds completely backward, right? Become what you are. But stick with me, because getting this is the absolute key to unlocking genuine growth. So here's the logic. When we try to force ourselves to be someone we're not, more disciplined or more confident, we basically start an internal civil war. One part of you is pushing forward and another part is resisting, digging its heels in. All your energy gets burned up in that conflict, leaving zero for actual change. It's only when we stop fighting and just honestly, fully accept where we are right now, that real change can finally organically happen. Now, this isn't just some nice philosophical idea. It's backed by cold, hard science. Let's actually look at what's going on inside your brain when you're at war with yourself versus when you practice acceptance. This chart really lays it all out. When you're beating yourself up, your brain's threat system goes on high alert. Your fear center, the amygdala, lights up like a Christmas tree, and you get flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. You are quite literally in survival mode. But when you practice self-acceptance, the complete opposite happens. It activates your brain's caregiving or soothing system. You get a nice release of oxytocin and dopamine, and your prefrontal cortex, the part for smart thinking and emotional regulation, comes online. This creates a state of safety, and that is the only biological state where learning, growth, and change are even possible. And here's the kicker. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a tiger chasing you and your own harsh inner critic yelling at you. The fight or flight response is identical. So if you're living with chronic self-criticism, you're keeping your body locked in a constant state of emergency. And let me tell you, biologically, you cannot grow when you're just trying to survive. Okay, let's tackle the biggest objection head on, the one we all have. Isn't accepting yourself just a fancy, new age excuse to be lazy and do nothing? The answer is a huge emphatic no, and the difference between the two is everything. Here's the crucial distinction. Resignation is passive defeat. It's throwing your hands in the air and saying, well, I guess this is it. Nothing I can do. It's pure powerlessness. Acceptance, on the other hand, is an active process. It's about looking at your reality, clear-eyed, without all the judgment, and just saying, okay, this is where I am right now. You don't have to like it. You just have to acknowledge it. Because think about it. You can't get to a new destination if you refuse to see where you are on the map. Acceptance is just finding your you are here dot. This little formula from a type of therapy called DBT just nails it. Pain in life is unavoidable. It happens. But suffering, that's a different story. Suffering is your pain multiplied by your resistance to that pain. So the pain is the situation, but the suffering is all the energy you waste fighting the reality of that situation.
When you drop the resistance, when you accept the pain for what it is, your suffering drops to zero. And suddenly, all that energy is free to actually solve the problem. So if fighting ourselves is the problem, what do we do instead? How do we actually put this into practice? Well, the answer is a practice called self-compassion, and it builds a foundation for a much healthier and, frankly, much more effective way to grow. Here's a super simple, scientifically backed technique from a researcher named Dr. Kristen Neff. The next time you're struggling or you mess up, you just pause and do these 3 things. First, just acknowledge what's happening. Wow, this hurts. This is a moment of suffering. Second, you connect with everyone else. You know what? Struggle is part of being human. I'm not the only one. This fights that feeling of being totally alone. And third, you just offer yourself a little kindness, whatever that means to you. May I be kind to myself in this moment? It's a simple practice that directly flips the switch from your threat system to your soothing system.
And don't for a second think this is about being soft or letting yourself off the hook. The research is overwhelming. Self-compassion is basically a high-performance strategy. People who practice it are way more resilient after a setback. They stick with hard tasks longer. They're even more likely to take responsibility for their mistakes because they aren't paralyzed by shame. Their motivation comes from a genuine place of care, not fear. Honestly, it's just plain psychological efficiency.
So if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. True, lasting growth isn't a war you have to win against yourself. It's a relationship, one that you need to nurture. So maybe it's time to stop acting like your own worst critic and start acting like your own best friend. And I'll leave you with one last question to chew on. Just imagine for a second that you woke up tomorrow and you were already that best version of yourself. You were already whole, already enough. Would you still be doing the same things, chasing the same goals you are now? It's a really powerful question because the answer can tell you a lot about whether your goals are coming from a place of fear or from a place of real passion. Thanks so much for joining me.